Welcome back, Rankers. Just as I was publishing the show last week, Google decided to publish something of their own called Search Plus Your World. And I wrote briefly about it on the blog last week, but I couldn't get it onto the show. So this week, I wanted to take a look at it because there's been a lot of stuff written about Google Search Plus Your World this week. And I know that in itself is a really crappy name, but more about all that straight after this.
Hi, I'm Daryl Braithwaite, and Jim Stewart is a real ranker.
Thanks, Daryl. Now, Search Plus Your World, and God, I hope they change that name. The nonsense or the myths, and I want to talk to you today about the myths of Google Search Plus Your World. That name. The benefits about Search Plus Your World and what you should be doing next for Search Plus Your World. One of the biggest myths is that this is a big play for Google to drive traffic into Google Plus and kill off Twitter and kill off Facebook. I've heard that one more than once. To me, that's nonsense because Google has never wanted to be a portal. Sure, it's got a social network now, and it's a pretty good social network. Certainly nowhere near as prolific and as big as both Twitter and Facebook. But nevertheless, a great network. Twitter came out and said that they were basically trying to kill off Twitter. We had other people come out and say that it was antitrust plus because Google was trying to corner the market on all your search activities. There may be some truth to that, but that's not the way I see it this week. What I'm seeing is more about authentication, and we talked about this over and over and over again. For instance, Google has tried to index Twitter when it first started. Google has had a lot of plays into the social space. They've had social search. They've had Search Wiki, which, God, that was terrible. They've had, what was that other thing that they had? Wave. That was kind of social. That was pretty horrible as well. But Google Plus is quite good. With Twitter.com, they've actually indexed about 3 billion pages, as Danny Sullivan pointed out to us. And go and have a look at Danny Sullivan's blog and just Google Danny Sullivan, Search Plus Your World, and you'll be able to read that article. But the reason that they don't index all of Twitter anymore is because Twitter switched off the feed. You may remember we used to have a thing called real-time search, and that was one of the options we had under search. Well, Twitter switched off the feed last year, and so Google couldn't index the feed in real time. Because as Danny Sullivan points out, Twitter, 3 billion pages, that's a lot. But there's about 3 billion tweets per day. So Google can no way anywhere near, just by its normal crawling of Twitter.com pages, keep up to date. And that's why we no longer have real-time search. Real-time search also did have other things in there like friend feed results and other real-time social network results. But what's happening now is, and we've already seen this last year, with personalized search, we had the results. You'll see it now. This was shared by, and it would be someone in your network. That has been around for a little while. What's happening now is, though, it is more integrated into images, into everything. And when you do a search, and this is only available in Google.com at the moment, but when you do a search now, if you're in the US and you've got Google.com, and I've had a bit of a play with this, you will see this link up here saying 50 personal results. Now, you can just go and switch that off. It's not the end of the world if you hate personalised search. And there's a lot of people that have come out and said they don't like it. And quite frankly, yes, it can be cluttered for certain types of searches and depending on who you're networking with. So the results here in a lot of ways are going to deeply reflect the quality of your own network. So if you don't know what you're seeing, maybe you might want to check the people that you're following and what they're sharing. So, what does this mean? This impacts on a lot of things. And you'll see here, every time you'll see a personalised result, it'll have this little icon against it to say this is a personalised result. And what we're seeing here is a picture of a Google engineer's dog who actually has the same name as a fruit. And what this engineer is saying, he'd rather see photos of his dogs when he does that search than the fruit. So it's picking these up from Google+. So all these claims that, Google's just trying to drive people back into Google+, at the expense of Twitter and everything else, well, that's kind of true. But I think one of the things that has been, I guess, looked over this week in certainly the discussions that I've read is this statement from Eric Schmidt, who was then the CEO of Google back in 2008, where he talked about the internet being a cesspool, which, of course, I don't agree with. And he said that brands were the way around that. Now, at the time, we thought, oh, God, Google's just going to promote brands over other content. Well, what he is saying, and which I didn't understand then anyway, was that he's also talking about personal brand, and that's when authorship comes in. Remember, we talked about authorship last year. Now, authorship came out before Google Plus came out. Now, authorship is attached to your Google profile. So what Google Plus is now calling, what Google is now calling authorship is their authorship pilot program to get predictions or content from prominent people and high quality authors. Okay, so verified Google Plus accounts plus people that have high quality authorship, and this will be independent of whether you're logged into Google or not. Remember, authorship is all about this piece of content was written by an author who meets our guidelines for the authorship pilot program. So those results will turn up, as they have done in the past, in Google. However, now, as Rand Fishkin pointed out to us today, they're actually going to appear up on the top right-hand side of the Google results in some instances, as well as in autocomplete, which we've already seen. But this is new because this is appearing above your AdWords, and who gets to appear here, of course, depends on the search and the credibility of your authorship and the sorts of articles that they have written and how relevant they are to the search that was done. You following me? So all the stuff I've been saying over the last 6 months about getting your authorship put together and get it up and get your Google Plus and all those sorts of things, and that it's important, this is why. Okay, so I think I've helped dispel some of the myths. If you don't like Google authorship, turn it off. Another thing someone said, a couple of people said, oh, Bing's a better search engine now. If that's what you think, go and use Bing. And all the best to you. And don't get me wrong, I'd love Bing to be a far better competitor to Google than what they are, because I think competition's healthy. But the benefits to this are that Google is trying to always get rid of the spam, right? They're trying to stop all the link spammers out there. And to give you an example, you can just go and buy thousands and thousands and thousands of links and link them all back to your site. And at some point, if that particular search result or that particular site in a search comes up in the future on the front page, it's going to mean that there is not enough authorship site attributed content to rank above it. Okay, so authorship, as what I said back in June last year, is going to become the new page rank. Chris Brogan, a great blogger, and others talk about this as trust agents. Eric Schmidt talks about it as brand, and that's what authorship is, and that's what this integration of Google Plus and authorship in a much bigger way into the search results is all about. It's not just about pushing people into Google Plus. I'm sure that's part of it, but a lot of it has to do with the authentication of content and who wrote that content. And the way that you get authentication in your content, or the way that you get a good authorship, or high quality, as Google's calling it, a high quality author, is by the number of times that people are linking to your content or sharing your content on the various social networks. And Google is taking all those social signals back to your authorship. So, what do you do next? Well, if you're a blogger, get your authorship set up. There are a lot of bloggers that still haven't done it. You have to do it. You have to go and get your Google profile set up if you haven't already. And remember, we've had personalized search for a long time, And a lot of the times it was actually coming from your Google profile if you had that set up, because you could link your Google profile out to twitter.com, out to FriendFeed and all these other places, and a result, a personalized result would turn up if it had been shared by somebody else in those networks. Now, you don't get to see a lot of that anymore because it's pretty dominant, as Rand points out in his video, of Google Plus shares. And that's, for me anyway, remember it's personalized, it's because a lot of the people that I would follow or on, say, Twitter or on FriendFeed or any of those other social networks are actually now on Google Plus, and they're updating Google Plus more so than possibly what they are, well, certainly FriendFeed at least. So, if you're a blogger, if you're a site owner who has content on your site, start to get some authorship credibility. Now, this is going to mean longer term, you're going to have to commit to fresh content. And if you're not doing that, then you're really not serious about your web presence unless you've got no competition out there. Good luck to you. So that's what you have to do next. I've written and videoed quite a few posts about how to set that up. You need to go and do it because at the end of the day, this isn't going to go away. People are saying, oh, it's the Google Plus, oh, it's a bit daggy. I agree, it's hard to use sometimes, mainly because of my access points. So for me, I want a kick-ass Google app that I can use a kick-ass iPad app that I can use for Google Plus. And that's it for today's show. Hopefully that's helpful. Share, comment, link to it, and we'll